I've come to delineate a difference between many different subject matters and their proposed accepted public image. One method of delineation parses an explanation into three separate categories: censored, proper, and honest. But I won't be talking about that here. Instead, I will cover a different kind of delineation: escalation. Personally, I believe there is a difference between anger, hatred, and malice, and I will be addressing this difference via my own experiences with escalation. Let's start with anger. Anger is a base emotion, one that should not be distinguished as evil or abhorrent. It is merely a signal mechanism for the individual that experiences it. This signal is meant to identify that something or someone is unliked, likely due to a specific experience. Let's demonstrate an example. Subject 1 likes to play with a hollow, shape-matching toy. Shaped pieces are placed in holes on the surface of a hollow box. The goal is to get all of the loose, shaped pieces into the appropriate holes until no shaped pieces are left outside the box. Subject 1 appears to be content with placing the shaped pieces through the appropriate shaped holes into the box. Subject 2 likes to play with the same toy as Subject 1, but Subject 2 plays differently than Subject 1. Subject 2 places the shaped pieces into whatever hole the shaped pieces will fit through, particularly the square-shaped hole. Subject 1 doesn't notice Subject 2's unusual interaction with the toy. Subject 2 then starts to do something peculiar. They cover every hole of the box, except the square-shaped hole, with tape. Here is where our delineation via escalation begins. Subject 1 starts to become angry. Now, whether Subject 1 dislikes the action of taping over the holes or the individual responsible for the action of taping the holes, the feeling of anger only lasts for as long as the action's effects are in place. Once the tape has been removed, Subject 1 returns to their activities. Anger is a temporary emotion that is only felt until the source that triggered the anger is removed. But hatred is different. If unliked actions are repeated, or if temperament is particularly volatile, anger can escalate into hatred. Subject 2 repeatedly retaped the holes in the box and would not remove them when they were finished playing. Subject 1 repeatedly untaped the holes whenever the toy was available and seemed visibly agitated. Subject 2 was removed from the room where the other subjects were being observed. Subject 1 would play as normal, appearing content. Subject 2 would be reintroduced to the room with the other subjects. Subject 1 would return to feel agitated. Subject 1 would return to feeling agitated once Subject 2 was reintroduced to the room. Even if Subject 1 wasn't confronted with the need to remove tape from the toy, merely seeing Subject 2 would cause Subject 1 to feel the same emotions. Subject 1's agitation worsened. Subject 1 noticed the pattern of Subject 2's removal and reintroduction to the room. Even when Subject 2 was not in the room, Subject 1 was still agitated. Technically, Subject 1 is angry, But now the anger is chronic rather than temporary. Originally, once the tape had been removed from the holes, subject 1 would no longer be agitated. Now, it didn't matter if the holes were covered or if subject 2 was present in the room. Subject 1 would still be agitated. Hatred identifies the source from which anger is chronically signaled from, and then re-identifies that source as a reasonable trigger for the emotion of anger. Then there's malice. Subject 1 is agitated when subject 2 is not present, but becomes significantly agitated when subject 2 is present. Subject 1, while silent, shows significant irritation when subject 2 is seen playing with the toy, and can even be seen staring at subject 2. Subject 1 persists to feel extreme agitation, and could even be seen violently removing the tape from the toy. Subject 2 started to notice and approached Subject 1. Subject 1 retaliated by smashing the toy. In my experience, malice is an extreme emotional compression of anger, generally sourced from hatred. Anger accumulates in the subject until a breakpoint is reached. Upon reaching this breakpoint, anger is released through actions or words with the intention to stop the source of anger or hatred from further causing grief to the subject. Some acts of malice can be directed towards the subjects themselves, but other acts of malice can target objects too. In this case, the target of malice was the toy that the two subjects enjoyed, an object that belonged to neither of the two. Malice can be dangerous, as releasing anger through actions or words generally blinds the subject to the repercussions of their actions. But malice, although dangerous, is not an exclusively hostile emotion. Malice is a mechanism meant to forcibly decompress an individual's angry emotional state when their emotional compression becomes dangerously high. To summarize, anger is an emotional signal meant to identify how the individual feels. Hatred is an emotional state of being meant to identify dangerous sources of emotion to the individual. Malice is the emergency mechanism meant to decompress an individual's dangerous emotional state for the purpose of relieving the individual from extreme emotional duress, regardless of circumstantial consequences. These are my opinions and not accepted definitions for these terms. I can only speak from my own experiences. It's possible that practical tests can't show these kinds of results because you would need access to the mind of the individuals involved and an accurate means of translating that information. I know my own mind, so I can use examples from that to translate the data, but the data is biased to myself. Regardless, these are my opinions on the matter of definition, my emotional definition regarding anger, hate, and malice. Forever forward we march. This is GD signing off. Until next time.